Arthur Brooks, I had a chance to connect with you and meet you briefly, ever so briefly, at GLS, an event that we both spoke at this year, which was a really special event, and it was such a treat to see you on stage. You're an incredible speaker.
Thanks, Molly. It's nice to see you. Well, not in person this time, but virtually.
I
And
know.
thanks for having me on this great show that's helped people for a long time.
Well, it's a pleasure. So, you've had such a multi-dimensional career and such a full life, Arthur, so far. When did you begin consciously designing your life and consciously designing your work? Because it felt like there was a little bit of shift at 50-ish in your life.
Yeah, that wasn't the first big shift, as a matter of fact. I started off as a classical musician. So when I was just a little kid, I had the aspiration to be a professional classical musician, which most classical musicians, they start that when they're 8 or 9 years old, as I did. And I didn't know anything else than that. I didn't really go to college. I went to about 10 months of college and then wound up going pro when I was 19. Spent my 20s, a lot of it in the Barcelona Symphony, playing the French horn, as a matter of fact. And it was in my 20s that I realized I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know how. So I just had to kind of figure it out. And
Wow.
actually, a good way to learn how to do anything to be a high performer is to start with the French horn. And the reason is because everything in life is easy when you're not holding a French horn, is
Oh,
kind of
that's
how it turns
awesome.
out.
That's
But I learned
awesome.
much later because, I went back to college. I went to college, and then I went and got my PhD and became an academic. Then did a lot of other things. I've had 4 distinct careers. And what I've learned is that most people who have a strong sense of their life's mission, they're not kind of linear in their career paths. They tend to be more spiraling. As a matter of fact, this is the work of a psychologist in California named Michael Driver, who has looked at different careers of high-performing individuals, and he finds that a lot of them have this 7 to 12-year career cadence, where every
Wow.
decade or so, they take their career down to the studs and start over. And
Wow.
then they use everything they learned from the last one and they put it in the first one. Sometimes they make more money, sometimes less. Sometimes it's for profit, sometimes it's nonprofit. The rhyme and reason for it is in the head of the striver, as it were. And when I started reading that literature, I understood what I was doing better, and now I can give better advice to young people.
Sure. And so, and I love this. I mean, the French horn, that's a great point. I mean, at first when you said that, I thought you got to be kidding me, right? Like, but it
Yeah.
is hard to do. You need to throw that into your shtick on stage.
Yeah, no. It is, I didn't know it was hard at the time, but, it's this super fine motor skills. It's very much like being a
Yeah.
professional athlete. And
Sure.
playing at a high level in a professional symphony orchestra is really tricky, so I have to say. But I learned a lot. I learned how to get up in front of people and do a hard thing. I learned how to have confidence, or to project confidence even when I don't have it. I learned how to, do something well from the very beginning. And so the result is, when I retool my career now, I went from French horn to becoming a professor, doing my PhD and becoming a professor as a scientist. And then
Yeah.
I went and ran a company for 11 years. And then I came and I started this happiness business, which is what I do now. And each one just kind of picks up where the last one left off.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And I want to dig into that. I mean, the happiness files, and I know you have several books already, and several in the works, I think. I'm sure there's a ton of books in you, and you've got a big one coming out too
Yeah.
next year. But what made this the right time, Arthur, to pull together your columns, essentially, right into the happiness files?
So this book, The Happiness Files, is 33 of my most popular columns about work, life, and happiness, and how it all hangs together. And, I've been teaching this class at the Harvard Business School since I've been a professor there over the past 6 years, called Leadership and Happiness. It's a very popular elective. And I realized that I needed to share some of these ideas more widely. And so I took, the ideas from the class, I turned it into a bunch of columns. Hold on a second here. I turned it into a bunch of columns, and then I shared it as if it were my class, but in a form that people can actually read in a book. And that's what this is. It's my happiness class at Harvard, shared with everybody, in a form of 33 chapters.
Well, and it's a fantastic book. I mean, I found so many sections of it with me, and I want to, sort of unpack some of them. But tell me this: was there a deeper theme that at some of them maybe surprised you, Arthur, when reviewing your own work, right, as you pulled this together?
Yeah, I mean, what it was when I started doing the science of happiness as a behavioral scientist, years ago. I didn't say this is my philosophy. What happens is that your own philosophy of life kind of emerges through your creative work, and maybe your creative work is running a company, maybe your creative work is out on a golf course, maybe your creative work is raising your children. And so I'm not saying it has to be your creative work as a writer or as a musician. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, but what you're doing productively from day to day, creatively, sort of in God's image, you figure out what you really believe by watching yourself do your thing. And so I went back after I had been teaching this stuff as a scientist for a while and said, it's funny because actually what I think is that life is a startup. I'm a business school professor, so I've actually written a textbook on entrepreneurship before.
Sure.
And I love the startup ethos, which is this, rugged individualism, this belief that I can do something, that I'm willing and able to take risk in search of explosive rewards. I love that. I love being an American for that.
Yeah.
But I realized that that's the approach to life. It's like you're Molly Incorporated, and you're the founder, you're the startup leader. And we got to treat our lives as startups. And so that's really what has come through over the past years in my work. And that's what I try to get across in this book, The Happiness Files, how to live your life like a startup, how to raise your kids as part of the startup, how to treat your career as part of the startup, where the currency of the rewards is not money and success, it's love and happiness. How are you going to become a billionaire in love and happiness? That's what the book's all about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I think people often chase achievement and unfortunately get, as you talk about in the book, extremely disappointed in what it isn't and what it is, and instead of paying attention to who they're becoming as a result of that pursuit in their life.
Absolutely.
To tap into that happiness, that joy, that fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure. There's one thing a mistake that a lot of people make, which is thinking that if they follow the impulses that they naturally have, that they'll automatically get happier. And the mistake of that is thinking that Mother Nature cares if you're happy. Mother Nature really only has two goals for you and me, which is to survive and pass on our genes. She doesn't care if we're happy. Happy is not in evolution, part of evolutionary fitness. We want to be happy, and so a lot of times we have to stand up to our animal natures. We have to live to be something more divine, to do something that's harder than sitting on the couch. And the result of that is that we have to transcend this idea that if I just get more stuff, more animal skins and flints in my cave and buffalo jerky or whatever today's version of that is, which is a Ferrari and a mini mansion or whatever, those things don't lead to happiness because the evolutionary code is confusing. That's really what it comes down to. And so I talk to my students. I say on the first day of class, here's what you're going to learn, kids. You think that if you're successful, that'll make you happy. The truth is you need to shoot for happy, and then you'll be successful enough. And that's the thing that really makes them panic, because they don't understand that word enough. And so that's what we have to work on the whole semester.
How do you unpack that? I mean, that is such a great point, Arthur. I mean, I think 100%, like, what is enough? And in fact, I mean, one of the questions I always love to ask is, what are you chasing? And a lot of times people, they don't have the answer to that. And that obviously is such a critical question to be able to have clarity around.
Yeah, if you think that having more is the answer to everything in life, then there is no enough. But when you realize that having more isn't the actual secret to the satisfaction of what you seek in life, then you have power. That there's a formula for satisfaction that is actually haves divided by wants. And that's one of the things that I teach. I talk about in this book, The Happiness Files, is haves divided by wants. You can temporarily get more satisfied by having more, another car, another house, another, putting in a swimming pool, whatever. But you're going to have more enduring happiness if you actually start working on your worldly wants. That frees you up to be thinking about the things that actually will bring the satisfaction that you crave. Your faith and your family life and your friendships and serving other people through your work is the way that works. And man, I got nothing against worldly success. I think it's awesome. I really, really admire high achievers. What I don't admire is people who are monomaniacally trying to find more achievement because they're trying to earn the world's admiration. They're trying to earn their spouse's love. They think
Sure.
they can't be lovable unless they have enough points on the board. That's a sad and pathetic existence.
Yeah, totally. What's the most misunderstood idea about happiness that you've discerned, uncovered?
The biggest mistake that almost everybody makes is thinking that happiness is a feeling. And it's like, I want to feel happy. Happy is, I ask my students on the first day of class, or how they define it. I mean, like, I have 180 students enrolled and 400 on the waiting list, so they want it. So I say, you must know what you want. They say, oh yeah, I can't quite put it into words, but I know it when I feel it. That's the classic response.
Wow.
And I say, wrong. Happiness is not a feeling. Happiness is not a feeling any more than your Thanksgiving turkey is the smell of the dinner. It's not. The smell of the turkey is evidence of the turkey. What's the dinner? The dinner is protein, carbohydrates, and fat, something very tangible that you can actually get better at. One of the things that I do these days, I'm doing a lot of work in the health and wellness and fitness space, and so I think about those things too. And happiness is the same thing. Happiness has feelings associated with it, but they're nothing more than an indicator that on average you're going in the right direction. What you really are looking for is the macronutrients of happiness, which is enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. Those are the three things to pursue. And so the biggest thing that blows everybody's minds is to stop looking for a feeling, because you'll be chasing that for the rest of your life.
And instead, those three things
Exactly right. Get
are
better at enjoying
signals.
your life.
Yeah.
Get better at enjoying your life, which is not the same thing as having pleasure, because pleasure and enjoyment aren't the same thing. Pleasure is animal, enjoyment is human, which means it involves the prefrontal cortex of your brain. It requires being social and having memory, so you can manage your pleasures and they don't manage you. Satisfaction is the joy of an accomplishment after struggle, which humans love. And by the way, your audience really understands that, because there's nobody who's listening to, or watching Game Changers who's not struggling for something better and suffering for something better. And the suffering is part of the sweetness.
Yep.
And then meaning is this idea that there's a why to my life. There's a why to my existence. And those are huge challenges that take your whole life, and they're like this exciting adventure, as a matter of fact.
Totally. 100%. Was there like one lesson in the book that fundamentally really changed your own thinking, the way you think, maybe the way you behave even? Get me inside of that.
Yeah, for sure. As a matter of fact, all 33. The reason is because they come from originally my essays in the Atlantic. I read a column every Thursday called How to Build a Life about the science of happiness. I only look at questions I want the answers to. And I'm always 10 weeks ahead on the column, and I'm trying the advice that I'm getting from the science before I actually put it in the column.
Love it.
And so the result of it is that every question that I've got, it's like, it's about me. Now, some of them are much, much, much bigger. And I had some real insights, as a matter of fact. There's one kind of near the end of the book. It's about a phenomenon called arrival fallacy. You remember that when I write about it at the end? That's this idea that I really want to make progress toward a goal, but when I hit the goal, therefore, it'll be the best thing ever. And this is the reason that Olympic athletes get
Arthur,
into
this is tagged. It's on page 190.
Yeah.
It is. It's right here. I love this.
It's for the game changers. It's for the high achievers. It's for you and me and everybody who watches the show.
Right.
The reason is because you assume, because progress is so sweet, which is why you're willing to forego everything that you want to eat to watch that scale go down, or to watch that time go down, or whatever you're trying to do, or watch the bank account go up. That once you hit the number, whether it's the number on the scale, the number in the bank account number, whatever it is, then that will be the best day of your life, and that's going to persist. And that's wrong. That is incorrect. That's why when people win, as I mentioned before, the Olympic gold, they often suffer a clinical depression, because your emotions don't exist to give you a good day forever. Your emotions exist to actually give you an indication that something is a threat or an opportunity. That's it. That's what emotions are actually for. So this is really important, and that's, I get in that essay, in that whole way of thinking, to this idea of intention without attachment. Game changers need to have an intention towards something better, but without attachment to the result. It's a very Buddhist idea. Now, why did I write it? Because, Exhibit A, Arthur Brooks.
Yeah.
is the whole thing. I've been trying to absolutely earn everything, win everything, be the boss of everything my whole life, and it's screwed things up for me again and again and again until it's like there are these moments where I remember one time I've been married for a long time, I've been married for
Yeah.
34 years, and Esther says like, why do you keep trying to earn my love?
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, what are you talking about? She said, it's like you think that I'm going to love you more if you're more successful. And I'll tell you why. I tell you why. It's because of the arrival fallacy.
Yeah.
It's because as a little kid, I got everybody's attention when I was really good in music. And a lot of the people who are really interested in your show, it's because they got adults' attention and affection when they got great grades or were good in sports. And they wired their brains to think that life is gray when you're not winning. And they become addicted to success and workaholic and self-objectifying and falling prey to this idea that you got to earn love. And that's not right.
No, it's not. And I mean, Arthur, it's so interesting that you pulled that forward because I think one of the things that resonated to me so much is the point of a good goal is to improve, and I'm reading from page 190, is to improve your quality of life by changing your day-to-day for the better, not to limp across the finish line and stop after a terrible ordeal. Working toward a goal is a lot like a pie eating contest, you say. But I thought what was so cool about that is that a goal has to ensure that it is taking you in a better direction to a place that you in fact want to go. And I think you make such a good point because I think sometimes it's this overwhelming attachment to progress instead of ensuring that goal or that progress is in fact taking you where you even want to go, right?
Well, for sure, and that you enjoy the journey, that you enjoy
100%.
actually what you're doing. You and I have seen it 100 times. Some guy who's like a vice president at Goldman Sachs,
right?
And he's got a $400 million and retires at 49, and then and he's like exhausted and collapses at age 49. He's like, I mean, he finds out pretty quickly that a little golf goes a long way, and that maybe his wife doesn't want him hanging around the house all day long. and it's like he's never even envisioned this. He's almost like, what's the reward for being so successful? $400 million in the bank and not having to do that job anymore. And it's like you can't live like that.
No, you can't. So how did you retool? And how do you coach people to retool their thinking, their approach, who are people who want to continue to make progress, but need to ensure that it's progress that's in fact aligning with their deepest values?
So it sort of depends on what the problem is. So remember that and I have a whole set of protocols on how to diagnose what your happiness problems are. I mean, some people, they have trouble enjoying their lives. And by this is for super achievers, this is the biggie. A lot of achievers don't enjoy their lives. Their lives are intensely satisfying because they're making all this progress towards something really meritorious.
Interesting.
Some have trouble with meaning. Some have a lot of trouble finding the meaning of their lives. They just don't know what the meaning of their lives are. And so they're distracting themselves with the constant progress. They're distracting themselves with the big questions in life. So I have a bunch of questions that I ask. And when I figure out what the real problem is, and again, with high achievers, with game changers, it's never satisfaction. Satisfaction is always really, really high, right? The struggle for something good. It's always either enjoyment or meaning. And it's like 50-50. And so I figure out which one it is, and then we set up a discipline. We do it like anything else. You need to start enjoying your life. What does it mean to enjoy your life? And we talk about the ways that people actually do enjoy their lives. That's my problem, by the way, Molly. It's like it's a problem. On a 1 to 10 scale, I'm like 9 on satisfaction. I'm like 7 on meaning. I'm like 3, 4 on enjoyment. And the reason is because it's always like go, 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 go.
Right.
And I've got the science, and I'm a scientist, so it's a kind of a bad look when I can't enjoy my life, right? It's kind of off brand. But the whole point is that's why I study this stuff, because I want to get better at it too. So that's my big challenge, and that's how I deal with people. I mean, just the other night, I was talking to 2 super, super famous high achievers at a big AI event out west. And I was talking to the 2 of them at the same time, and they were old friends from the Obama administration.
Okay.
And I figured out that one of them needed more enjoyment, the other one needed more mission, needed more meaning in their lives. So I talked to them, and it was like group therapy. It was
It
awesome.
sounds like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So what are some maybe habits, tactics that maybe you coached those two guys on in that moment, or
Yeah.
that you have coached others on, that people listening can go, wow, dude, that's me, right?
Yeah.
Like what are some things that you would say, hey, here's some things for you to consider?
Yeah, well, sort of depends what the challenges are, for sure. Right, what I'm writing about mostly right now is I'm writing a book for people under 35 years old who are struggling, and that's because there's a huge crisis of meaning among young adults. And the main reason that there's a crisis of meaning is not because they're, slackers or something. Quite the contrary. It's because we've retrained our brains in the age of technology not to use the right hemisphere. This is a whole theory called hemispheric lateralization. The right hemisphere of the brain assesses meaning, it's being, and the left hemisphere of the brain is about doing. And we're a doing culture. We're a technologically adroit culture, but we never ask why. And so the result is that since we're never on the right side of our brains, we're incompetent at the why questions, and that leads to anxiety, that leads to depression, that leads to emptiness, that leads to loneliness, that leads to the explosion of mental health problems that we actually see today. So I have the protocols on what people who have a lot of meaning, what they do differently, how they live their lives differently. There's basically 6 things, by the way.
Okay.
I prescribe asking big questions that don't have answers. Questions that you can't actually type into the search bar in Google. Big questions like, why am I alive? You could type it into Google, but it would have no meaning if you did that. Second is that you need to give your heart away. You need to give your heart away, because that's like the scariest, most complex, meaning-filled thing that you can actually do, and which young people are doing less and less and less. The third thing you need to do is to get serious about your faith or spirituality or your philosophical life. That has no solution.
Right.
You got to live with that.
The mystery. Yes.
You got to look for the meaning, the calling in your work, as opposed to just the living in your work. And that has a whole set of mysterious protocols to it. You need to look for more beauty in your life. This is what leads to meaning. And last but not least, you need to understand that suffering is sacred. That suffering is really important.
Tell me about that.
And suffering is not something to be eliminated. Suffering is an opportunity. Those are the 6 protocols for finding meaning.
Wow.
When it comes to enjoyment, my problem, when it comes to enjoyment, it starts with things that you like, pleasure, and then adding people and memory to them. Finding the things that give you a lot of pleasure, and then finding ways to add people and memory to those experiences. And when you do that, you're moving the experience into your prefrontal cortex, and actually there's a great German philosopher named Josef Pieper in the mid 20th century who wrote a famous book called Leisure, the Basis of Culture, where he talked about taking your leisure as morally seriously as you do your work. And that's the protocol that I use.
Yeah. Which turning it off can be hard, right? But you write about how important it is for us to be able to do that, and the things that actually percolate out of those moments, those windows of time, that we do pause, right?
Yeah, totally. And again, people think of leisure as sort of just chilling. That's stupid. There's nobody watching Game Changers that wants to go sit on a beach.
Right.
I mean,
right.
only on your worst day you think that, and then within like an hour you're like, nah, enough beach.
Totally.
Right? No. I mean, it's
100%. Every family vacation I plan with our family, I'm like, we gotta go. We can't. I'm not sitting on the beach, right? Like, and what are we gonna go do together? Which is cool. What you just talked about, right? Because that pulls that forward, that experience with people you love.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that I typically prescribe for strivers when they're trying to actually enjoy their lives more is taking their leisure as seriously as their work and doing something that's incredibly edifying. That's not work. So, for example, I've sent dozens of people on the Camino de Santiago, which is the walk across northern Spain, the 500-mile walk across northern Spain, that Catholics like you and me, we've been doing it for 1,100 years. I've done it twice. And you start on the French border, you literally walk all the way to Santiago de Compostela, which is a city in northern Spain, a medieval city in northern Spain. And And when you do that, you're going to find what you're looking for. You're also going to drop a bunch of weight, but you're going to find what you're looking for. You start off with an intention of what you're trying to seek, and then you're going to walk your way to finding it. That is the classic way to enjoy your life more if you're a striver. And I've got a whole bunch of protocols like that.
That's unbelievable. You've done it twice?
Yeah. I didn't do the whole thing twice because my wife won't, because she's sensible. But we've done the back end of it twice, and it's incredible. It's
incredible.
The best.
That's so cool.
Everybody should do a pilgrimage, because a pilgrimage is a way that the metaphor of your walking is the metaphor of your life of seeking.
Wow. That's fantastic. I know what my husband and I are going to do for our next trip. That sounds
Totally.
killer.
Don't take the kids.
Don't?
No, I mean, it sort of depends on the kids,
Okay.
of course. I've done it. I did it with my daughter. Our daughter came with us one time, and they have to be grown up. You don't want to be like, Mommy, I want an ice cream. No.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Is there a practice from, your course that you teach, right? That maybe your students resist at first, but then end up coming to you and saying, oh my gosh, Arthur, Dr. Brooks, this was absolutely transformative for me.
Yeah, half of them call me Arthur. The other half call me Dr. Brooks. I don't get it. Professor
Well,
Brooks
I just went with both. I thought it might be safe.
Yeah, no, it's safe. It's all safe. It's all safe. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of it. And, one of the things that I ask my students to do is to lean into their fear. One thing that all game changers have in common is that they tend to be quite fear motivated. And what's the fear? The fear is failure. It's a fear of failure. Yeah. Fear of failure is an incredible impulse. It's extremely unhealthy and extremely corrosive, but man, it'll make you run, because that's your tiger, and you're running out in front of the tiger.
100%.
The thing but my students, my students are master's degree students. They're MBAs at Harvard University. These kids have never failed. They've never gotten a B. Are you kidding me? and so
I got them for them.
Yeah. And they're super afraid of failure. And so one of the things that I do that they resist but they love is I take them through a Buddhist meditation called the Maranasati meditation. It's an ancient Theravada Buddhist meditation where you contemplate the 9 stages of your death. So and the monks in Vietnam and Sri Lanka and Thailand, in their monasteries, they'll actually have photos of corpses in various states of decay, and they'll stand in front of each one and say, "That is me. That is me," until it's a skeleton, the whole thing. So the way that I do it is I set one up where you're progressively imagining your own failure, and you're leaning into it, you're exposing yourself to it, you're dominating the fear, you're owning the fear. It's super invigorating. And at first it's like, and I walk them through it. I'm like, okay, step one, I feel like I'm falling behind my colleagues here at HBS. It's like, I don't know what's going on. And then, I thought I was going to get good grades, and I'm not getting good grades. And I just got called to the dean's office. I think I'm on academic probation. And then 4, I'm not getting good job prospects. I don't know if I'm going to find a job out of this. And number 5, I'm at home. I'm living at home after my MBA. Are you kidding me? Number 6, my parents are feeling sorry for me, and that's when they start to cry.
Wow.
Right? Because all they want to do is earn their parents' love.
Yep.
That's what we were talking about before, right? Yep. And when they can confront this, they can beat this whole thing. And by the end, they don't have fear anymore, because they've owned it. They've faced it. They've recognized that all of these things have a certain kind of inevitability to them, as a matter of fact. The truth is that there's no high performer by the end of her or his life that hasn't failed. And so you might as well get used to it.
Yeah. So Arthur, you're saying that, so they go through that, and at the end of that, you're suggesting that they feel at some level relieved of that fear of trying to, for example, please their parents or whatever it might be?
Yeah. They feel free. Now, again, they have to do it over and over and over again. But they have freedom. And what was really holding them back was the thing about strivers, that high performers, they're actually not afraid of failure. They're afraid of their own feelings if they do fail. People are funny. It's like you're not afraid of, something, a lot of things happening. It's like a setback in your show, for example, getting canceled by your network. You're not actually afraid of that because you know what you would do. You're afraid of how you'll feel about yourself if that happens.
Interesting.
And so what you find is that high achievers are very, very afraid of their own negative emotions. And so what you're doing with this death meditation is that you're facing your own negative emotions. again and again and again and again. And when you've actually felt those things in a controlled environment, pretty soon you're not afraid of those feelings anymore. And that's freedom. To not be afraid
Wow.
of your emotions is freedom.
Sure. Wow. Yes. Well, and you talk about, I think, in this book, emotional regulation. Do you?
Yeah.
Is that? Am I think? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is that connected to this at some level,
Yeah.
Arthur? I mean,
It's just one way to manage your own emotions. The ultimate kind of leadership is a leadership over yourself.
yeah.
And how do you lead yourself? By actually managing your emotions so they don't manage you. Great leaders are the greatest leaders emotionally self-manage. By the way, the greatest moms are emotional self-managers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is not when we're
I would
talking about
agree.
leadership. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about company leadership.
Right.
I'm talking about life leadership is how this comes about. And so the way to do that is to understand how that psychology is biology, that the limbic system of the brain exists to give you emotions, not because it's good or bad, but because these are signals about what's going on around you. Understand what the signals are, appreciate the fact that you need them, interpret them as appropriate, don't be afraid of them anymore, and then learn how to deal with those emotions such that you're reacting the way that you want, not the way that you feel all the time. That's self-management. That's very powerful.
Yeah. You know, part 5 of the book and of this collection of essays to me was really interesting. I mean, because I think so much of this is important relative to us, but it's also, as we both know and believe, that it's about the legacy that and the imprint that we put on people's souls in the relationships in our lives and the connection with others. What does science say about the relationship between success and happiness? And why do so many high achievers end up less happy, right? More, the more they achieve, and sort of how do we fix that when we think about it through that relationship lens?
Yeah, well, we don't understand what actual success is. We take a lot of propaganda from the world and from Mother Nature to think that real success comes in 4 forms: money, power, pleasure, and fame, or admiration or prestige. Those are the 4 types of success that the world brings us. You know, if I have a lot of money, I have a lot of influence, I feel really, really good and have a lot of comfort, or I have a lot of admiration of other people. Those are the denominations of it, and those are things that don't satisfy. They just don't. And so what happens is that very successful people, they have this weird curse that unsuccessful people don't have, which is that their dreams come true. And there's this old expression, woe be to the man whose dreams come true because he inevitably finds that he had the wrong dreams. Look, if you're thinking like, oh man, if I were one of those rich guys, it would be so awesome if I won the lottery, if I were a CEO, I'd buy a fancy car, I'd buy a fancy house. But then they get back to the serious business of living, of, you know, going to the park with their kids and, you know, and going on a Carnival cruise and, you know, whatever they do, and they enjoy their lives and they have great relationships. Meanwhile, the person, the woman or man whose dreams really did come true, then they're like, oh yeah, I sacrificed my relationships to get all this money. You know, I'm exhausted because I was trying to get the corner office. And now I'm in the corner office and I'm alone. And these are some of the things that they actually find. And that's that's the striver's curse.
Yeah. And you know, you emphasize that happiness comes from relationships, more from relationships than from accomplishments, but how do we cultivate, you call it deep connection, right? In an age that I think is there's so much surface level interaction. And I think it's interesting because it is so difficult to me, what we want that deep connection. We want to really peel it back with someone. And so deep connection, tell me relative to relationships, social wealth, as you talk about it.
It takes time and effort, and strivers don't have either, or they think they don't. So the way to think about it is that, you know, I have done a lot of research on loneliness. The loneliest people I've ever met are super strivers, are the most successful people. They are. Wow. It's not because they don't have friends. It's because their friends are all deal friends, and they're not real friends. Everybody watching us, listening to us right now, knows the difference between real and deal. You know, the real friends or the deal friends, I should say, are the ones that are useful to you. And successful people are surrounded by useful people, and they're incredibly useful to those people. And that's fine, but that's not the basis of something good and pure and beautiful. You know, if deal friends are useful, that means your real friends they're useless. They're just, you just love them and they love you. And useless people, they take time. They take time because every hour you spend with somebody who's useless is not improving your career and not enhancing your bottom line. And people who are successful are not used to that. They haven't done that. They haven't done that since college. Stayed up until 1 o'clock in the morning talking about nonsense. They haven't done that in a really, really long time, but that's what you've got to do. And so, recognizing this and doing the research, like I eat my own cooking, I have to take my own research.
Right.
And so my wife and I, we started doing a thing where we'll invite people over and it's like, go deep or go home. Go deep or go home.
Love it.
We're going to talk about real things. I don't want surface level nonsense. I really don't care about your opinion about the weather and traffic. I don't care.
Right.
I care. Talk to me about God. Talk to me about, the word. It's funny because, and then, it's like when you see it, it's astonishing. We were in, a couple of months ago, Esther and I were in Madrid, and some people that we barely knew invited us over for dinner. And, 10 minutes after sitting down, the hostess, she says, there's like 8 of us. She says, have any of you almost gotten a divorce?
Welcome. We're going deep.
And I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah, totally. That is awesome. And how I mean, I love it. And do people opt in, Arthur? I mean, do they step into that space and
some do,
you get some yeses?
Don't. Yeah. If you want deal, nuh-uh. If you want real,
Yeah.
And you got to be into play, man. If you actually want these rewards, if you want these deep connections, and again, look, super strivers don't have that much time. You better not waste it. Don't go out to dinner with somebody and then waste the whole time talking about trivialities. That's like your life is short, and you have less time than most people, so you got to use it to go deep.
Yep. You talk about how midlife can be a powerful moment to pivot. Right. From some of this that we've talked about, chasing maybe the wrong things. What's one thing that maybe you've let go of, or that you've one thing that you've embraced inside of sort of those midlife moments to pivot?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is for most people who've been able to do a lot, for high achieving individuals, is getting rid of your identity as a winner, your identity as something that's not actually serving you anymore. It's not something that you're actually achieving for the good of mankind, not even for your family necessarily, but it's a kind of a conceit. And so one of the things that I recommend is to kind of have a reverse bucket list, especially after about the age of 45, where you make a list of all your attachments and then you start crossing them out. So everybody my age and younger, and especially older, shouldn't have a to-do list that they put together on their birthday for the year ahead. They should have a stop doing list, a to-don't list, a stuff to cut out that no longer serves you. And all it's doing is reminding you of who you were and is building up your ego because you don't want to let it go. So this is a very, very important discipline. It's something that I've done an awful lot of. I've wound up doing an awful lot of that. When I first started doing that, I had to confront the fact that I was a CEO of a big think tank in Washington, D.C. And it was like the best think tank in Washington, D.C. It was the height of my career. It was literally the best thing I was going to do professionally. And it was in my 50s. I was in my mid-50s. I had a lot of run room left to go. But it was at the point in my life where they needed a new leader. They didn't think they did, but they did. They needed a new leader. And I needed to do something new, but I was having a hard time letting go of looking at the guy in the mirror and saying, that's the president of the company. And so I sucked it up and I quit. And man, Molly, was hard. It was really, really, really hard, but you got to do it. And I was finally free. I was finally free of me.
Yeah. It's so interesting the way you say that, because I remember I'd written a couple books and then I started getting asked to speak, and I loved it. And I loved this opportunity to share these stories as a wife and a mother about sports and high performance. But I remember, right, because the world thinks, oh my gosh, sports agent, that's a dream job. And I'm like, so it's funny what you're saying, Arthur, and I don't know that I've ever said this sort of out loud before, but the truth is I sort of kept my foot over, like, oh no, I'm still working with a couple. Like, oh no, even though I really was so committed to where I was going, I was afraid probably more than anything of the external perception of what are you thinking? You're leaving this dream job to go, I mean, what? And so disconnecting from it's hard. It's really hard, right? But what you're describing is so what would you advise somebody? I mean, if somebody was going to pull back and sort of do what you suggested at the, at a midlife or maybe every birthday, how do you think about that? Right? Like, is there a process? Is there a checklist, Arthur, you got for me?
No, I wrote a whole book on that called From Strength to Strength, Finding Success, Purpose, and Deep Happiness in the Second Half of Life, that walks you through the steps of doing your next thing.
Love it.
And it's a very practical book. It's a very practical book. And this is a book for people who are, I mean, again, if people are listening to us, and a lot of people are not 40 yet. Okay, but you're going to be, God willing. You got to have a plan. And so what are the things that you're going to naturally be good at, and what are the things you're going to need to strip away? What are the things you're going to need to say goodbye to? That's really what that's all about. And there are absolutely, like everything else, there's protocols on how to do it. Yeah. But more than anything else, it just takes, it's very helpful to have a great partner. It's great to have somebody that you actually believe is going to love you no matter what.
Yeah,
right?
100%. 100%.
It's very important to have a relationship with the divine, to have a deep philosophy or faith. And, for me as a Christian, it's incredibly helpful to say, I think God loves me either way. I don't really think God cares if I'm the president of a think tank.
Right, 100%. 100%, absolutely.
And really laying into that. And the first time I did the Camino, by the way, it was when I was going through that change.
Okay.
It's when I did. It was like I stepped away from that job. I had not started my new thing, this big new happiness venture and teaching at Harvard and the books, et cetera. I was in a liminal space. I was between those two things, and I went and walked the Camino, and I said, Lord, show me my path. Lord, show me my path.
Wow.
And that was the right thing to do.
Yep. Amen. I love it. If you could give every leader one practice that would change both their leadership and their life, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a tactic, what would it be?
So there's a lot, I mean, that you could actually go in. What would I say? I would say that I would ask leaders to remember the formula for true life success, which is different than the formula the world is going to tell you. The world will tell you that to be successful in life, you should love things, and you should use people, and you should worship yourself. And that's exactly wrong, because that will lead you to misery. It'll lead you to misery. It'll probably lead you to a lack of success too. The right formula is to love people, use things, and to worship the divine. And that's the formula, not just for leaders, but for everybody. But in the hands of leaders, to be remembering that, to write that on a little 3x5 card and put it up on the fridge. Today, am I only using things? Because only things are for using. And by the way, use them with abundance and gratitude. And because I'm a capitalist, man, and I love living in a rich society. No, it's great. I mean, I love America, and I love the free enterprise system. But I don't love things. I use them.
Right.
I only love people. Right?
Sure.
I only love people because people are made for love, and I only worship the divine because nothing else is worth worshiping, especially me, is what it comes down to. And then I interrogate myself. And that little process has never steered me wrong as a leader or as a person.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So, Arthur, we end with rapid fire. I'm going to hit you with a couple quick ones. You ready?
You got it.
A book that's most influenced you.
I mean, it's like, I'm going to say the Bible, so let's not say that. The book that's influenced me the most is called The Way of a Pilgrim. And that's a book by a Russian monk in the 19th century, an anonymous Russian monk who's just walking around in Siberia. And it tells about his adventures while he's saying one single prayer over and over again. It sounds so boring. It's a total page turner. And it's helped me to understand that the nature of my life is that kind of pilgrimage. The way of a pilgrim.
The way of a pilgrim. What new habit has improved your life in the last year?
New habit that's affected my life in the least. So I'm very, very interested in how nutrition affects happiness. And I'm very, very involved in pretty science-based fitness. And so one of the things that I've actually tried to do is to change my macros so that I'm getting a lot more, I'm timing my caffeine intake and setting up my morning protocols, including with my nutrition, that will optimize my brain chemistry and creativity. And so the result of that is that I get up at 4:30, I work out from 4:45 to 5:45, then I go to mass every day.
Yep.
Only after that, when I've been up for 3 hours, then I drink caffeine and I have a 60-gram bolus of clean protein. I get 4 hours of uninterrupted creative time because my brain chemistry is on point. That protocol, that set of protocols has really helped me a lot.
That's incredible. I love it. Wow. That's awesome. I want to know more about that, man. Is that another book you got coming out in a minute?
Yeah.
All right, good.
I'm publishing that next month. So yeah, I'll send it to you.
That's amazing. I would love it. If you could give your younger self one insight, right, from everything that you know, what would it be?
Being more successful is not going to make you more lovable. Working harder is not going to make you more lovable. Yeah. The people you really care about, you can't earn their love. It can't be done. And most importantly, you can't earn God's love. Can't be done.
So the show's called Game Changer. So who's a game changer? Who or what is a game changer who inspires you and why?
So the people who inspire me are the people who change the game not for themselves but for others, who are really changing the game for others and turning the whole dial for at least one other person. It's very easy to look at the people who've actually changed the way that we think. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. But the truth of the matter is that the game changers I really admire are the people who have actually really silently change the lives of other people and change the whole world for at least one other person. So the people that I admire the most are the people who, in my own life, who inspired me and my wife to actually be involved in the foreign adoption movement, because these are the people who changed the game for a whole person for their whole lives. Those are the people that I admire the most and that I've tried to emulate in my life.
Yeah, those are game changers, no doubt. Arthur Brooks, super fun. Thank you so much for coming on. Love it.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate it. I appreciate your work for inspiring people and lifting them up. And thanks to all the game changers who are trying to make the world a better place.